Doing semen retention the wrong way can make your head explode, and it can cause spontaneous combustion. Well, fortunately, it's nothing that crazy or extreme, but there are some potential downsides, some potential dangers, things you can run into when practicing semen retention. And all these things can be avoided if you have the right understanding of what you're doing, if you have the right tools at your disposal. But in the modern world, semen retention has become a very trending topic, and the modern semen retention scene is full of bro science. It's full of people giving advice who have no idea what they're talking about and are just trying to get attention and views. And what I'm speaking from in this video comes from 11 years of my own direct experience, having practiced semen retention for 11 years now. I know that doesn't mean I've gone 11 years without ejaculating, but it does mean that I found a sustainable path of semen retention for myself within these past 11 years. And so that's where I'm coming from. So I'm gonna break down the dangers of semen retention and how you can avoid them. I'm Jonathan White. I'm here to help you master your sexual energy so you can manifest your ideal life. If you're enjoying the content, make sure you hit subscribe to support the channel and get your free ejaculation control course through the link in the video description below. The dangers of semen retention. What I present in this video is going to be coming both from physiological understandings of the human body as well as more esoteric energetic training from my training in Qigong, basic Chinese medicine theory, things like that. So I'm going to be approaching it from different angles here. And to just give a bit of context here, it's important to understand that with semen retention, what you're doing is you're stopping a leak that is otherwise occurring and creating a buildup of energy. And this is a neutral thing. In some ways, it's neither good or bad. It's giving you more fuel to be who you are. It's giving more fire to the systems already taking place in your body and mind. And with that understanding, we can see that if there's an individual who is greatly imbalanced, if his mind is very imbalanced, if his energetic system, his body has serious imbalances within it, then these things can potentially be exacerbated and amplified by the practice of semen retention. Now, on the other hand, when you're a more or less healthy, balanced individual, when you're keeping your body and your mind balanced through the right practices, and you're doing semen retention on top of that, you're going to have incredible results. So you see, things aren't so black and white in semen retention, which is not what most people make you think. They paint this picture of like, oh, the longer you go, the more the benefits stack up. If women aren't flocking to you by the hundreds, if you don't only need 3 hours of sleep to be at your peak performance every day, then there's something wrong with you. Like, just a lot of complete bullshit. Like, semen retention is not a cure-all. It's not going to fix everything in your life, and it's not all rainbows and sunshine. You can get fucked up by this, all right? So let's go down the list. Here we go. Number one thing is prostatitis type symptoms. Inflammation in the prostate area within the pelvic floor. And this isn't to say that semen retention is bad for your prostate, but once again, everything isn't so black and white here. There are grains of truth in different perspectives often. Let's talk about Jing, your physical essence in Chinese medicine. It's the energy that underlies the physical body, and it's your potential for physicality stored in the kidneys, and it gives birth to the body. The more Jing you have, the more you're able to continue reproducing yourself in every moment via cellular reproduction. So the body stays alive, basically. As your Jing supply diminishes, the less efficient cellular reproduction becomes, aka you start to age. You become older. Things don't function as well. Your hormones get lower. And it's a path towards death. When a man ejaculates, he's moving his Jing. And it's not to say that simply ejaculating or moving your Jing is bad, necessarily. But if you do too much, it is harmful because you spend it up. If you're only spending it here and there and you're building up more of it than you're spending, you're fine. But the case for most men, they're spending far more than they're earning. And after years and years of doing this, they're pretty damn depleted. What I'm getting at with Jing is that there's a movement quality to it. It correlates very strong with the mind and desire. And if you think of the Jing as this thick, viscous liquid, we want to keep our Jing fluid so that basically what that means is that our life force can freely circulate throughout our body, and especially in line with the desires we have, our creative process, like our ability, think of it as your ability to live in the flow. And when you spend too much Jing, you dissipate your energy. You don't have enough fuel anymore, and you feel fatigued, you feel unmotivated, your hormones are low, you just want to sit at home and jerk off to Pornhub every day. But on the other hand of the spectrum, when your Jing becomes stagnant, and this is what happens for a lot of men who do semen retention, because you go from one end of the spectrum to another. You go from ejaculating every day to zero sexual activity, or maybe a lot of edging without ejaculating. And so now there's this huge buildup of Jing, but it gets really stuck in the lower centers. It gets stuck in your pelvic floor and creates all this stagnance. And what you experience is tension. You experience stiffness in the tissues. Your lower body gets really stiff. You experience stiffness in your personality, in your emotional body, your mental body. So you get really stuck and rigid. You become very obsessive sexual thoughts, obsessive egotistical desires, rigidity in your personality, and especially rigidity in your body. So experienced as blue balls, experienced as inflammation in the pelvic floor and even the prostate region, pain in the prostate region, pain in the pelvic floor. And I've personally experienced these things at times in my practice where I wasn't transmuting the energy very well, not circulating it. So basically all this energy building up in your balls, it just gets stuck in the lower body, it gets frozen and just kind of pulls everything down here. Your mind becomes overly sexualized, you get a bit stuck in your thoughts, and everything just feels a bit stuck in your life. I know I'm going on a tangent with this one, but it is important to understand this doesn't have to happen. And this is why, for me, semen retention should only be done in the context of you have an internal practice where you learn to circulate your sexual energy. You learn to move your jing so that instead of getting stuck in your balls and just making you excessively horny and stiff, it moves through your body and you become lighter. You become more fluid in your life, more flexible. Your thoughts become more creative. You become better at solving problems. Your sexual energy then drives you, becomes transmuted. This is what transmuting sexual energy means, is you move it out of the genitals, it changes the form of it, okay? And so to cut a long story short here, you may want to watch my video on semen retention and prostatitis, which goes more into like avoiding the negative physical symptoms in the prostate region from retention. And to keep your sexual energy circulating, there's a practice. There's many practices. The sexual kung fu system goes really deep into this as a process, but the basic entry-level technique for this is testicle breathing, which I've made a guided video on. Check that out. And if you get really good at this technique, you will keep your sexual energy flowing. Now, I want to touch on this a bit more because, I kind of lumped all these things together, but what I just mentioned was prostatitis, which goes hand in hand with stagnant jing and tension in the body around the sexual region. But another thing here, which this ties directly into, is having extremely obsessive behaviors, very obsessive behaviors. And it's interesting because, again, there's this kind of like slingshot effect where modern humans tend to have these extremes where they go all the way over here to all the way over here. Like I'm going from the raw vegan diet to the carnivore diet, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying these things are wrong, it's whatever, but like it's just a tendency I've noticed in humans and a tendency I've noticed in myself. And a very common tendency that I see in men who really get stuck in their practice and their journey of semen retention is going from the one extreme I think most of us have been in, which is we're jerking off every day, just skeet shooting our life force all over the place like there's no tomorrow, then it catches up with you, right? And so you go from that extreme of excess release to this other extreme, which is I need to go forever without ejaculating. If I ever ejaculate, I've failed. I need to do everything within my power to make sure I never ever ejaculate. I need to avoid touching my penis. I'm going to avoid women, whatever, to make sure I never ejaculate. So it becomes repression now. So overindulgence to complete repression. And neither of these are healthy. You're still way out here in this pattern of an extreme, which causes as much harm to your mind and body as the other. Let me give you an example. This is another thing I commonly hear from men. I'll get a message from a guy saying, Jonathan, I've been doing semen retention. I'm on 4 months of semen retention. And then I went on porn. I jerked off. I ejaculated. I completely failed. Should I just stop? I lost everything. And I'm like, bro, like you didn't fail. You went 4 months without depleting your energy. And then, okay, you let one rip, but like big fucking deal. You know what I mean? You didn't fail. You just ejaculated. And like, yeah, it takes a day or two to recover. And then guess what? Because you've built much more energy into your system, you're no longer way down here at the bottom. You've put some drops back in the bucket. And coming back to this obsessive pattern is like, there's the period of very, very obsessive retention where a lot of men aren't even enjoying themselves. They're like, I can't touch my dick. I can't experience sexual pleasure. I have to just squeeze all my muscles and no ejaculating. And that's how they live their lives, in a state of constant fighting with urges, constant fighting with desire. And it's just this, and no one can sustain that. Eventually you're going to slip. And what happens is they go back onto a spree of watching porn and ejaculating and doing this for days or weeks in a row. And then once again, hitting a black hole of kind of emptiness and disappointment with that. And then going back to the other extreme, very obsessive and I would say unbalanced retention, where it's just absolute repression, absolute force. Always stuck in those extremes. That is not healthy. Neither phase of that pattern is healthy. You're at a net loss. You know what I mean? If you retain for 4 months and then go ejaculate for 2 weeks in a row, like you're still at a net loss with your energies. It's good to have some fluidity with this. This is why the sexual kung fu practices are so important, because the main goal isn't avoiding ejaculation or going forever without ejaculating. It's about integrating your mind and body and your energetic system, turning your whole body into a pump for sexual energy so that it flows through your body, and then you can have sexual pleasure. You don't have to like be on this constant battle of, no, I can't do this thing, or no, I can't. You're there. You experience sexual pleasure. And once you learn how to separate your orgasmic pleasure from that diving into ejaculation, it no longer becomes obsessive. You just enjoy yourself. And it's not a big deal if you don't ejaculate because you feel fantastic. You have so much energy. And then occasionally there comes a point where it may be time for you to ejaculate. You've been having non-ejaculatory sex every day for a month. Like, if you ejaculate at that point, you're not really losing anything. You feel fantastic and you're not on this death grip of control with your life. So hopefully that makes sense. The next kind of negative effect that men often experience on semen retention, this is another very common one, is greatly exaggerated emotions. Irritability, nervousness, anxiety, these things can often become exacerbated. And it usually is a sign that things are starting to get stuck. And coming back to an earlier point I made, whereas with semen retention, you're introducing more energy into the system than it's used to. And this is more fire to fuel your thoughts, your desires, your emotions. The underlying infrastructure of what's already happening in your body now is supercharged by your sexual energy. And so you can imagine as to how this could potentially turn out negative for some people. If you're already an angry, frustrated person, if you do retention without learning to balance those emotions, you're going to be a super angry, super frustrated person. On the other hand, if you're a very balanced, very maybe virtuous, compassionate person, if you have kindness and respect towards others, then those qualities will also be strengthened by this introduction of more energy into the system. This is the metaphor I like to use, is like you can become maniacal Sith Lord, or you can become a virtuous Jedi Knight. You know what I'm saying? This is why, again, it's more than just are you retaining or not retaining. It's how are you managing yourself throughout this process. And that's why when you study the sexual kung fu system, some of the first things you'll learn is how to clear out these negative emotional patterns, how to integrate these shadow aspects of yourself so that you don't just further build up all this anger deep within yourself that just explodes out in a very inappropriate situation. But you learn how to integrate, how to vent, how to harmonize and release these patterns from your body. And again, having these extremes of negative emotional patterns shows that your energy is stuck somewhere in your body, which is why learning how to circulate your energy, how to keep it flowing is so important, especially your sexual energy. Keep the waters flowing because stagnant water becomes contaminated. And this is why Qigong is such a crucial aspect of the sexual kung fu system. You keep your channels open, you keep your life force circulating, and you feel high. You feel fantastic every day. Okay, and then one last point I want to cover here, one last negative effect of semen retention is insomnia. I mean, really this goes hand in hand with a dysregulated nervous system, increased cortisol in the system. And these things can be, again, exacerbated by semen retention. And so what often happens is this introduction of extra energy into your system. When you are already a sort of stressed out person, then this just gets exacerbated by the buildup of sexual energy in the body. You start to have more cortisol. You start to feel every day like you've had 3 cups of coffee. You feel like that 24/7 sometimes when you're really imbalanced with this. And it's not a good sign. It's, I often hear from men like, oh, I only need to sleep 3 hours a night on semen retention. And I'm like, bro, like, yeah, it's fun for a little bit, but then you realize like you're just cortisol pumping through your system. And that's not having extra energy. That's having an extremely unbalanced nervous system. And you're going to crash hard at some point. It's going to catch up with you. So dealing with insomnia, this excessive cortisol, this is why regulating your nervous system is so important. And one of the biggest things here with this is grounding. Grounding. Most modern people are extremely ungrounded. They're disconnected from their feet, their legs, and the earth. And it's not as simple as taking off your feet and walking barefoot in the grass, like earthing. Like, yeah, that's beneficial and it can help, but you really have to be able to bring more what I've been calling lower body consciousness to keep your mind down low. Because what's happening energetically is all this excitement, all this nervous system energy, this stimulation essentially that gets sometimes exacerbated by the buildup of sexual fluid. When your mind's centered in your head, your upper body, which it is for most people, then everything's flowing up here. All this heat that you're generating comes up into your head, comes into your upper body, and it gives you a headache, feel overstimulated, you feel stressed the fuck out. You can't sleep at night because there's all this energy from your system just cooking your brain. There's many remedies to this, balancing your nervous system, having more calmness. In times when I'm a bit stressed out, a bit overstimulated, one of the things that helps me the most is to just lay on the ground for about 15 to 20 minutes and just breathe and release all tension from my entire body. Just scanning for tension and releasing for 15 to 20 minutes. And I usually feel quite rejuvenated, and quite calm after that. Grounding specifically though, there's specific grounding techniques that you can use to literally wire your energy body into the earth so that you have a greater container. I always use this analogy. It's like the electrical system of your house. Would you want an ungrounded electrical system that's a little faulty? It's like sparking. That's dangerous. And that's what a lot of people's bodies are. It's ungrounded. It's just this kind of faulty electrical current that's just ready to short circuit. And so by doing certain practices, Qigong is huge for this. You learn how to ground your energy into the earth, to slow it down a bit, to thicken it so that it's more dense, more calm, more manageable. And this also has the effect of improving your arousal control. Yeah, baby. And that's a big component of the sexual Kung Fu system. But basically learn how to ground yourself. Be more grounded, more awareness of your feet, your legs, and your energy is going to be much smoother. And also taking some time at night before you go to sleep to have a wind down routine, avoiding screens, not even reading a book, because the eyesight tends to stimulate the rising of energy into the head. So just having like a nice calming like stretch routine, turning off the lights at night, going for a calm walk in nature, just having some sort of like transition into sleep, even up to 2 hours before bed, will really help you to wind down, clear thoughts, and transition into sleep. So I know I dropped a lot in this video, but this is a comprehensive topic. It's not as black and white as some people present it as. There's really a lot of nuance to the human body, the human mind, the energetic system, not to mention the sexual dynamics of your arousal, your desire, all these things. It's a lot. It's a very sticky situation. And most people just don't have any clue about all this stuff. They just say something that they heard because they've been doing this for a few months and getting something from it before the reality and the depth of what's really happening starts to set in. You know what I mean? Further down the line. And so it's just good. It's good to know what you're really getting yourself into. And I'm not saying like semen retention is dangerous and people shouldn't do it. It's just important for me to frame that this is just, semen retention is one pillar of the sexual Kung Fu system. And to be honest, it's not even the most important thing, because if you train in sexual Kung Fu, if you open up your channels, incorporate your sexuality into your mind, your heart, your emotions, into your being, transition out of this porn conditioned programming and the successfully lustful, heavy energy that's just driving you into impulse, then you naturally have a much healthier connection to your sexual energy. You're much less likely to just waste it. And this is how you start to become multi-orgasmic as well, where you're having non-ejaculatory orgasms. And by doing that, when you've experienced that, when you're on this practice, you already have a daily practice that's balancing your energetic system, semen retention actually becomes a natural byproduct of that, because you simply lose your desire to ejaculate. So you don't have to force anything. So just putting everything in perspective here, when you focus on everything I've talked about, I know it's a lot, but it's a system of training. But when you really find balance within this lifestyle, it's absolutely incredible. And it really does become this gift, this power, and this drive that no one can take from you. If you want to learn more about the sexual Kung Fu system and how to train like a sexual athlete for absolute sexual mastery and effortless semen retention lifestyle, check out my upcoming free training, Orgasmic Olympian. It's going to be epic. Put more information to that in the description of this video. If you have any questions about the potential side effects of semen retention, or you have any of your own experiences you'd like to share, let us know in the comments below. If you got something from this video, hit the like button and have a great day, my friend.